This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, the plot thickens when it comes to Venezuela, and, well, why would the United States stop there? We're going to go there today on what might be next in Central and South America, what could be next in North America. A good friend of this show, Sharan Carr, with a recent national column for CTV, claiming that Pierre Poilievre, leader of Canada's official opposition, has set a dangerous precedent with his commentary or his interpretation, his support, ostensibly, for what the the Trump administration has done to remove Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro from power. Of course, you know that he has been already before a lower Manhattan court and obviously charged with some pretty serious offenses. But what was it about Pierre Poilievre's support for the move that the Americans made that sets the dangerous precedent in Canada? And why are so many people triggered by what Sharan had to say? That's coming up in 30 seconds. Before we get to her, let me remind you about what our friends at Rapidex Financial are doing. You can find them online at rapidexfinancial.com. That's who's presenting this episode of the show. You know, the crypto world moves fast, but you trust, you have to. And when you're deciding in an exchange, you got to recognize, and we can all acknowledge, that your trust in an exchange cannot be a gamble. And that's why I'm partnering with Rapidex Financial. They're a made-in-Alberta solution backed by the same experts behind those rapid cash ATMs that you've seen across the country for like the last 25 years. Rapidex makes it easy to get started with 3 ways to trade. You can use one of their physical crypto ATMs. They've got an over-the-counter desk for discrete, larger value trades, or of course they have that secure online platform that we're showing you right now, rapidexfinancial.com. And for Real Talkers, there's a special offer right now. If you go to rapidexfinancial.com and use the code Ryan50, all one word, Ryan50, you'll get 50% off fees on all of your online Interac e-transfer trades. It's secure, it's FinTrack registered, that's a huge deal, and crucially, it's non-custodial, meaning that you always control your keys. If you know crypto, you know that that's important. That's rapidexfinancial.com, promo code Ryan50. Real talk, real Bitcoin. So I'm just cruising social media platforms over the past day or so, and I see our good friend Sharan Carr, and she's published a new column at ctvnews.ca. That's where you can find it, The Dangerous Precedent of Poilievre's support for Maduro's arrest. Now, everybody, around the world, they're paying attention to the move that, of course, the Americans made in removing Maduro from power. And then, of course, as we do, we start to wonder what that means for our own nations. We start to look for the political responses from our own leadership. Well, that's exactly what Sharan did, and it's triggered some people. That seems to be perfect fodder for a talk show like this, which is why we're thrilled to welcome back the national political commentator. She's a principal at Navigator, former senior staffer with former finance minister Bill Morneau. Sharan, this is the final day, they tell us, the 7th of December, that we're allowed to wish anyone a Happy New Year, so I will start with that. It's nice to see your face again. I hope you had a relaxing holiday break.
Happy New Year, and it's nice to be on again.
Yeah, you were right back in your wheelhouse, getting people thinking and triggering a few pretty prominent online commentators as well with your take on Pierre Poilievre's response to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Why don't we start with the situation writ large? What's caught your attention about it, and what in particular jumped out at you from what the leader of the official opposition had to say about it?
Yeah, so listen, this is a pretty nuanced discussion, and we live in a time where nuance is lost on people, which has probably caused all the triggering online. But listen, I think anyone who was following this over the last week was kind of watching the situation in probably in 2 ways, some in serious concern and another in some excitement, I would say. Now, on this matter, I would say 2 things can be true at the same time. We can agree that Maduro is a horrible, horrible person. We can agree that he is an illegitimate leader. And I say leader because he is a self-proclaimed leader. He is not an elected leader. But we can claim all those things. Extremely bad, a horrible person, has done horrible things for Venezuela. But we can also, if you consider the bigger picture, appreciate that this is also dangerous in terms of how the United States went about it. It's one thing to have a bounty on someone that the previous administration put on him. It's another thing to then go into a sovereign country and extract that individual. And I think that motives matter. There's a lot of perspectives out there that it's good versus evil, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is. But Trump has blatantly come out to say he's like, they're going to get into the oil. They have rights to oil there. They're going to reimburse their costs through the oil, and they're going to run the country. In what world does the United States of America have the right to run a sovereign nation? He's already discredited the opposition leader by saying she doesn't have respect of the people. So motives matter. And I guess my position on when I wrote that opinion piece was that Pierre Poilievre was very quick to jump on the bandwagon to congratulate President Trump and to basically put aside the international rule of law. And I know people can be precious about the rule of law and how we have to kind of sometimes do certain things to get around bad people. But if we're going to allow President Trump to do this, what's he going to do next? And what does it send a signal to people like Putin and Xi Jinping around Taiwan and Ukraine? We also saw the president and his administration come out saying Greenland is of significant importance to them, and they will use whatever, even military exercises or whatever they need to do to get access to it. So like when I say Pierre Poilievre has set a dangerous precedent, it's basically not caring about international law and what everyone's place in the world is. And there's more in the piece that talks about this whole perspective of America being like the kings of this hemisphere and all that stuff, and people can go read that. But it's definitely set off my fan base who have been bombarding all of my platforms to tell me that my take is wrong.
Yeah, well, writer Michael Bonner, I'm sorry to say this, Sharan. It just feels like I'm really lacking grace. The first week of a new year. I don't mean to stir up the trolls. I don't mean to shoot oxygen into the embers here and flame this up again. But he describes it as a truly dreadful piece of writing. Yeah. And then a name caught my eye: Howard Anglin, Jason Kenney's former principal secretary. Well, Anglin, I haven't heard. I mean, I'm not saying he's not been doing anything, but I haven't heard a lot from him since he was a senior representative in the Kenney Premier's office in Alberta. But he says this is middle school level commentary, reading like it was Google translated into another language and then translated back, to which Bonner replies, atrocious. Are you okay?
I guess you didn't see the response that I sent back, these two wonderful relics this morning.
Well, I wanted to set the table for you.
Nothing triggers middle-aged men more than somebody having an opinion that's not them. And honestly, I don't care. I thought it was pretty funny. I was chirpy right back at them because, it's one thing to comment on someone's perspective, but like this is just like BS low blow. Like, I'm sorry you don't like my writing style. That's great. Like these are two guys who are, one has a doctorate in whatever and the other is pursuing a doctorate. Like, that's great. I wasn't writing an academic piece, but like if the best thing you can do is tell me this is like middle school grade writing, then good for you. But like it just tells you that there's merit in the conversation. I'm not the first person who has made reference to what Trump is trying to do under this whole doctrine of like the North American portion of the hemisphere and it kind of being an American superpower. So like that's just like some low grade commentary. But there's people who have come out and said, well, Prime Minister Carney came out in support of Maduro's takedown as well. Prime Minister Carney came out and he said he welcomes the removal of him. I think there's a big difference between how it was done, why it was done, and him not being there. I think everyone can agree. The guy should not be holding a seat of power, but to go into a country and arrest someone, like to go into a sovereign country, what's going to stop Trump from coming to Canada and arresting someone like that? It's not black and white. And I think people are being really obtuse to a certain point around the nuance of what kind of precedent this sends for other countries and other leaders. China can very easily come in and say, Taiwan is a national security threat to us. We are going to go in there and arrest whoever we want. And so be it.
Yeah, I should put a couple of things on the record. I mean, number one, and we talked about this and read the tweet in our most recent episode, but Mr. Poilievre on the 3rd of January, shortly after this went down, basically congratulated President Trump, what he says on successfully arresting narco-terrorist and socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro, who should live out his days in prison. He goes on to talk about who he thinks the legitimate winner, or who at least should assume power. The winner of the most recent Venezuelan elections, Edmundo Gonzalez, and Maria Corina Machado. I want to ask you, by the way, about her. It sounds like she's willing to give up her Nobel Prize here. That's kind of a interesting development here. He says, down with socialism, long live freedom. Nothing like egregious in what Poilievre had to say, just a little bit too cheerleader for you. I mean, he didn't say anything like obtuse.
No, I actually think Poilievre's statement could have been a whole lot more fueled in a certain rhetoric. I do think, though, to immediately come out and congratulate the president on committing an act that could have implications on how other countries operate is it's careless. It's careless for somebody who wants to lead a country. He's leaning into the populist Trumpian style of politics that it triggers his base, right? He knows that that's what his base wants. And I'll give him credit that he's got a very different perspective on Venezuela because his wife, her family left Venezuela. I don't know the full history of their personal circumstances, but he's got personal firsthand experience from his wife, and it's okay to acknowledge that the people of Venezuela are happy today. They're happy that he's gone, but what is that going to mean from a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now? Again, the motives matter. If Trump came in and said he was going to give all the money from the oil to the people to help the country get reestablished, that's one thing. But for the leader of a country someone who wants to be the leader of a country to kind of just come out so unequivocally and congratulate the president of the United States on committing an act that has consequences, I personally think that it's bad precedent setting.
Okay, so we've got like Mark Carney, of course. We saw a meeting with European leaders, this coalition of the willing, talking about Ukraine and Russia for the most part in Paris. You just said, if we allow Trump to do this, if we allow the Americans to do this, aside, like in real talk, aside from at probably a flamethrower level, like condemning the actions. You know how politicians work, especially at the most senior levels where you've worked. It's diplomacy. Canada's got a lot of things to consider, including the renegotiation of CUSMA. We can talk about whether or not the average Canadian actually believes that, Mark Carney could be, like pulled out of bed while he's sleeping and thrown in front of a New York magistrate. I find that hard to believe, although I've found a lot of things hard to believe that are real life right now. But what does, like, an appropriate, in your estimation, an appropriate and realistic response look like, not just from Canada, but from Britain and France and Germany, and the list goes on?
So I think countries like Canada are in a really difficult and a significant position, considering the fact that we've got CUSMA renegotiations and the fact that our economies are so intertwined. We've seen the negative downfall the tariffs are having. We've seen the threats of 51st state, all these things. So we're in a unique position. So I understand the Prime Minister's statement. It was not harsh enough for a lot of people. And there's a reason why he hasn't come out to fully condemn Trump, because Canadians will pay the price should he decide, I'm mad at you because you said something about me and I'm going to now trigger more tariffs on you. So there's a balancing act in diplomacy, and we're not living in normal times right now, and you're not dealing with a normal president. So there is a level of cautiousness the Prime Minister has to take with his response that someone like Pierre Poilievre doesn't, right? So there's that aspect of it. But some countries have come out with far more stern statements because there's fears of what this could mean for them. Like, you're not going to see a country like Ukraine come out and say, like, well done, Donald Trump, because again, what if Putin wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to go in? Like, he already tried to do this with Kiev. So this is not a black and white situation. We can all be really happy that Maduro's out. It would have been different if, for example, he was traveling internationally and there was an arrest done off of Venezuelan soil. Like, there's aspects of this that are more acceptable than not, and we can celebrate the fact that he's no longer a leader, but still condemn how it was done. At no point in my piece have I ever said that I'm in support of Maduro as an illegitimate president. And I get a lot of people saying, I can't believe you're supporting a dictator. No, this has nothing to do with that. I think that the rightful individual who got elected should be allowed to run the country under their guidance. But I don't think the U.S. has any right to take claim of running a country, taking access to their resources, all for a cash grab. This is all about oil. Anyone who thinks that this is not about oil, I think, is being naive.
Cactus Sheriff in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider, says European leaders or EU leaders are banding together to plan for if the U.S. imperialist machine tries something in Greenland. Canada's response has been weak sauce. Meantime, JD says Greenland is a done deal, says guaranteed that's going to happen. Christine says world leaders are walking on eggshells instead of responding with appropriate condemnation. Integrity matters. And, well, how about this take? Emily G says if the Americans were so concerned about protecting or defending democracy, the rightful winner of the election should have been immediately installed as leader. How about this? I'm sure you saw this, but Maria Corina Machado, the most recent winner of the Nobel Prize, talking to Sean Hannity on Fox about this rumor that she was willing to give up her Nobel Prize to I mean, this is, anyway, let's roll the clip and then I'll get your take on it. Here's Sean Hannity on Fox.
Did you at any point offer to give him the Nobel Peace Prize? Did that actually happen? I had read that somewhere. I wasn't sure if it was true.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but I certainly would love to be able to personally tell him that we believe the Venezuelan people, because this is a prize of the Venezuelan people, certainly want to give it to him and share it with him.
I want to give it to him. I want to share it with him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've seen Stanley Cup parties where the winner, the member of the team that wins the cup, invites all their family and friends, and everybody's allowed to pose with it and hold it up and maybe even drink champagne out of it. But I don't know that means that those folks are Stanley Cup champions. Is Trump really going to be the Nobel Peace Prize winner when this is all said and done?
Interesting that she said that, and I think there's a bit of the rose-colored glasses syndrome on this, and I think she can be happy, but again, is she going to be happy in a month from now when maybe she gets to actually run a country and then she's got Donald Trump and Americans lined up to basically benefit off of their oil resources? I would say that's a really bad move on a leader's behalf. But again, like geopolitics is not black and white. It's at the end of the day, the people that need to benefit from his removal are the people of Venezuela. And I don't see a path to that unless they are given their full ability to govern and operate themselves. It's not going to happen under Donald Trump. And if we allow people from super countries to go in with motives to get access to resources to benefit their countries, it's not necessarily doing a lot for the country they're doing it to. So like, she can give him the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think that means he won it. It means that he has a secondhand prize of it. It's just, to me, this is all so bizarre that this is what it's come to.
Let's talk about the Canadian angle. And I mean, everybody's talking about oil right now. I mean, the president has, I don't know if he's plainly stated. Yeah, he's kind of plainly stated it. I mean, he's at least strongly alluding to the fact that this is what this is all about. And I haven't seen a lot of people push back on that. I don't think that anybody actually believes that oil doesn't factor into this. But of course, people are wondering what it means for Canada's energy markets, in particular in our home province of Alberta. A lot of people are paying really close attention to the impact that this will have. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney speaking to this. I'll get your response in just a second, but here he is. Here's Mark Carney.
A functioning, not corrupt Venezuelan economy will produce more oil. It'll be better for the Venezuelan people. It'll be more stable for the Western Hemisphere. That's all a good thing. Canadian oil, Canadian energy, but I'll speak because you asked specifically about Canadian oil. It's been our view, and we're working towards this, that Canadian oil will be competitive because it is low risk, clearly low risk. Low cost, the marginal costs, there's been huge progress in getting down the costs, and low carbon, which is what the Pathways project, carbon capture, will bring. And that makes Canadian oil competitive for the medium and long term.
Okay, so he's not the first to make the argument. The leader of the official opposition not sold on it, Pierre Poilievre, tweeting, Mark Carney says Canadian oil will remain competitive because it's low risk, low cost, low carbon. Says Poilievre, Canadians deserve the truth. Venezuela's return to global oil markets is a specific threat to Canadian oil sands petroleum in a way that Saudi oil or other light crudes are not. And we can't afford to delay any action that'll protect our sovereignty and give us new customers to sell it to, especially a pipeline to the Pacific coast. He goes on from there, but I mean, interesting angle. It's efficient tactical angling or posturing if you're Poilievre to get that pipeline built, to put the attention back on the Liberals and that MOU with Alberta. And I mean, that deadline's looming. Let's not forget. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and listen, that there's validity to that argument. I think we have seen this government take a stance on wanting to build major projects. The Prime Minister has said we need to do this. And while a lot of people don't buy into it because they think, well, he's got views on climate, so how could he care about a pipeline? Two things can be right at the same time. The moment we live in is very different right now, where we might not have been so, I would say, hip hip hooray for a pipeline under Trudeau's administration at this moment in time. If he was still prime minister, it's different because we've got Trump, we've got this sovereignty issue, we've got all these aspects around trade. So there is this unified position Canada has taken. And I do think we need to work on the pipeline. We've seen Alberta come out of it saying we need to do this. They've put their hand up as a proponent to do one. Now, Venezuela and Canada have very similar oil. We both have bitumen, right? So we don't have the ability necessarily to refine that in Canada just yet. And there was plans for that years ago when TC Energy was trying to build Energy East. But I think the Conservatives have a good pushing point here because it brings the perspective back on how do we get our own resources to market. We don't know the full impact of what this is going to do to the global oil markets. I think there's analysts that are really smart out there doing the analysis, but we know there's going to be an impact. We just don't know the level of the impact it's going to have.
I want to play something, Johnny. If you could grab me the clip from Florida Senator Rick Scott, a Republican senator, had some pretty interesting stuff to say about the hemisphere. You're about to hear it, but talking about how basically Venezuela is just a start. A lot of people are paying close attention to Greenland for obvious reasons. It seems to be where Trump has his eyes set next. But there was a lot of talk about like Colombia and Mexico. And
yeah.
Kind of the list goes on. So what we'll hear from Senator Scott here, and then I'll get your take on this, because this is something where all of a sudden, if this becomes, people talk about policy being normalized. I mean, this is exactly what you're talking about. And I guess maybe this is a test balloon to put it in front of the American people. But we'll get the senator on the record on this episode and then your take on it. By the way, if you're just joining us, we're hanging out with Sharan Carr in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. The subject, Venezuela and the world. Here's the senator.
So proud of what the president did, and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and everybody, our military, Maria Corina Machado, and what they did in Venezuela is going to change Latin America. This is the start of changing Venezuela. Then we're going to fix Cuba. Nicaragua will get fixed. Next year we'll get a new president in Colombia. We're going to start, the democracy is coming back to this hemisphere.
So the president...
I mean, it's pretty wild when you hear it plainly stated like that. I mean, what's the average person to think about it? What do you think about that?
Again, so this goes back to the whole precedent that this situation is setting. And let's put Pierre Poilievre aside and just focus on Trump for a second. So he's gone in and taken out Maduro because, as he calls him, a narco-terrorist, or as people are calling him, a narco-terrorist. Okay, so then there's Mexico. We know there's a massive drug issue in Mexico with the cartels and what's coming over the border. So does that mean now he's going to go into Mexico and arrest someone in Mexico saying, because of your leadership and what you're doing in this country, my country is getting drugs in it? What about China? China, who is huge on fentanyl. Is he then going to go into China as well? But when we look at this northern hemisphere, they've said Cuba, they've said Mexico, they've said Colombia. So this goes back to this Holden Road doctrine of wanting to take ownership over this hemisphere and kind of having this superpower that is the United States of America and whatever that looks like. And I think that is dangerous. Again, we're seeing it with Greenland, where it's mind-boggling to me, where you have a country, I think it was Stephen Miller's wife posted something that was like insane right after. There was a map put up yesterday of Greenland by someone in the U.S. administration that had a U.S. map over Greenland. And they are saying, we will use whatever means and force also its military force required to get access because it's for our sovereignty and for our security, the Arctic security. So at what point does one country get to dictate or take control of others? Like, you can't just walk in and take a country over, but this falls under the whole idea that the USA is kind of the superpower of this hemisphere, and then you've got Russia that can take another hemisphere, and then you've got China that can take another, and it's creating this very odd dichotomy of power. And I think people should be seriously concerned because, again, it sets a precedent. And if you are cheering someone on who doesn't actually have I would say any authority, but is conducting these acts to change how international law works and to change how the world order works, we're looking at a really big problem when it comes to how countries think of security, how they interact with one another, and what that means for every country's own national security.
Hey, just brass tacks here. We're past the time that we've asked you for it. I know that your days are stacked with the meetings. Do you have 5 more minutes or not? If you have to go, we can let you go. You have 5 minutes? Okay. Sure. I appreciate that because I wanted to ask you in follow-up on Greenland. Republican Congressman Don Bacon, one of those that's kind of speaking, I mean, credit to him, the Nebraska congressman, for his comments on Greenland. And I think as that conversation continues and this becomes more and more of a reality, a lot of people are looking to the GOP to say, who's going to, Jim in our live chat right now says, who and what will stop Trump? I mean, I would say heart disease, but I digress. That's a more casual conversation to have. Here's Congressman Bacon out of Nebraska.
White House just reiterated that U.S. military action to acquire Greenland is not off the table. Have you talked to anybody in the White House, President Trump, Secretary of State Rubio, or anyone else in the administration about this?
Well, not since Miller's comment yesterday. But I hope Republicans stand up against this, universally oppose and give the feedback to the president, because this is appalling. Greenland is a NATO ally. We have a base on Greenland. We could put 4 or 5 bases on Greenland. They wouldn't mind that. They would make agreements with us on mining. Denmark is one of our best friends. They had more people per capita die in Afghanistan and Iraq fighting for us in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they're a proven ally. So the way we're treating them is really demeaning, and it has no upside. All it does is making our NATO allies angry. It's creating distrust, and there is no upside to it. And we're not going to acquire Greenland. I know most people in Greenland want to remain independent Greenland, with Denmark providing some protection, and they count on us. We're NATO allies. We have bases there, and we can build on that. So this is one of the silliest things I have heard come out of the White House in the last year, and it's unacceptable, and I hope other Republicans line up behind me and make it clear to the White House it's wrong.
So appalling, demeaning, one of the silliest things he's seen come out of the White House. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to congratulate this guy for standing up and speaking out within that ecosystem, that Republican ecosystem. I feel like that guy needs to brace for impact. I mean, you look at what critics have been subjected to. We can talk about Mark Kelly in a second, but geez, right? I mean, good for him for speaking out.
It was bold of him to do that, but he's absolutely right. If we take a look at the NATO angle here, we're talking about a complete complete combustion of world order. When you are doing something against a NATO country, when you're doing something that is completely against the general rule of law and decency, you're setting up a really, really bad precedent. If the United States can say, for our country's national security, we're going to go basically annex Denmark so that we can take it over and protect ourselves, I don't even have a word that can justify how insane that is, because that is just, anyone can say that. That's kind of what they've said. We're going to make Canada the 51st state. And we all say it's cute, it's a joke. But when you're putting stuff out saying we're going to take over Greenland, putting maps on it, saying you're going to use military force, again, you're telling countries that are run by really dangerous people around the world that they can do the same. And maybe this is some sort of plan that he's put in place with China and Russia so that it makes what they're about to do acceptable, maybe. I don't know, but this is against world order. You don't get to just go and take someone's house and say it's yours. That's not how things operate. It has created massive distrust, and I don't think the relationship between countries, specifically even Canada and the U.S., is ever going to be the same again, because now we have a history where someone has done this, it just normalizes it. And it's throwing everyone into a loop of like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I have this, I don't know, I'm of two minds on that. I feel like a lot of times, David Cochrane had an interesting comment. I don't know if it went viral yesterday, but it got a lot of play where he basically said, I don't know if you heard it, but he said, what did he say? The United States is not the way it is because Donald Trump is president. Donald Trump is president because the United States is where it is what it is right now, which I thought was an interesting take. Like, will sort of Trumpism, survive beyond Donald Trump's tenure in the White House or beyond Donald Trump? I guess that can be debated. I also feel like it just sort of this relationship, and maybe I'm still wearing my rose-colored glasses and everything else. I'm someone that wants Alberta to stay in Canada. I want Quebec to stay in Canada. I want us to have a wonderful, the longest, we won't say an unsecured border, but everybody recognizes what was so special and unique about that Canada-U.S. border for so many decades. I feel like it can and ultimately will return to that. Not to say that we just cross our fingers and take the punches in the meantime, but I know on the flip side, a lot of people feel like there is permanent damage being done globally and otherwise. I think metaphorically, the minute that Trump's out of the White House, the word Trump is coming off the Kennedy Center, and I think that that'll represent probably where America returns to normal, or some semblance of normal, but maybe that's not the case.
But I think there's validity in the whole idea of is it because of Trump or is it because of the people? I think a lot of it is because of Trump. When you see someone in a position of power, someone who's leading a country act in the manner that he has, and like I'm talking on every level, like when it comes to how he treats journalists, how he treats people, how he's treated women, the things he says about people in general, he's created a level of acceptance amongst like the people, right? And so I don't think that ever goes away. He can leave, but we now see that this belief, this level of, hey, this type of stuff is great, is acceptable. So it's never going to go away. It's just he's made it acceptable on the mainstream. And my concern is when our own politicians here in Canada are feeding that narrative, we're also kind of pulling into that it's acceptable here. We saw a lot of that during the Freedom Convoy, and put aside what people felt about vaccine mandates and all these things, we saw a new era of how people are willing to behave in public or towards one another or how they operate. And it's like this Trumpian style, populist style of forgetting of the collective good and thinking about things from a misinformation, disinformation perspective and from an extremely polarized view. And I'm not saying that people are not justified to have their beliefs. I just think that when you create an environment that is so hostile and allows for people to think this is good behavior, you forget about the collective good and you're no longer like thy neighbor, right? And we've seen a lot of that since Trump has been elected. So not to get all like, what does this mean long term for like people's relationships, even just amongst people? We've seen hate go up. We've seen crimes in certain ways go up. And I just think it's dangerous on every level.
Yeah. I mean, in particular, recognizing the kind of the anniversary of January 6th and the whole 9 yards.
Did you see what they did on the official website?
At whitehouse.gov. It was taken down by the time it was on my radar.
God.
Tell us about it.
So I saw it briefly last night and I was just mind boggled. And I have a group chat with a bunch of women from politics of all spectrums. And even my really conservative friends who don't actually dislike Trump's policies were like, what is going on? He essentially is trying to justify January 6th. And the fact that this was on the official government's website, it was like people died that day. People suffer from long-term mental health issues from that day. The insurgents of the Capitol should never be acceptable. And he essentially tried to make it seem like it was acceptable. Like the fact that even made it on the site to me was just like, wow. I would never have thought that this would be the case. Like there's no seriousness left in it, but it was insane, like completely insane.
Yeah, it's already down unless I'm missing it. But by the way, credit to Raheem Mohammed from the National Post yesterday pointing out to me, I had no idea. Did you recognize, maybe I'm the only person in Canada that didn't, that January 6th is also the anniversary of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation?
I didn't put two and two together,
right?
But yes.
Nor did I. Yeah, so he wished us, from his perspective, a happy Justin Trudeau resignation anniversary yesterday when he appeared on the show. So I guess, two
We
things.
all like Raheem, so there we go.
But I just to say to you, and I don't think that this is that hot of a take, but when I think back on January 6th, I'll never forget the day. Nobody will ever forget that day. We were sitting in Real Talk was just a baby talk show at that time. And we had a tiny little 170 square foot studio where we first started in a shoebox with one monitor that streamed cable news for us. And we were just sitting there with our jaws on the floor watching this thing unfold. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't know. I mean, you put it up there with like Oklahoma City, and you put it up there with, I mean, maybe not 9/11. Maybe you got to be careful. Maybe you don't have to stack them up on the same list. Pearl Harbor. Like you look at like the Kennedy assassination. Like you look at, people will compare and contrast where they are in the significance of that nation's history. But like it's on that list, right? It's on the list of the top 5 things or top 10 things for sure. If you're going back to the Civil War, that have defined the identity of that nation. Hey, I know you got to roll, but let me I started by stirring up the trolls and pointing out the people who suggested your writing was atrocious. Why don't we end with a bouquet? How about this at nationalnewswatch.com? An all-timer, Peter Mansbridge, one of our favorite past guests here on Real Talk. I mean, this is one of the guys that, I don't know about you, but he inspired me to get into the business. He's got a weekly newsletter, and so I'm scrolling through Peter Mansbridge's The Buzz and just getting set for the new year and getting up to speed. No better place than Mansbridge's newsletter for that. And what do I see? But the man himself, putting it on the record, he says, I like this piece from CTV contributor Sharan Carr. There you are. And he provides the link to your feature, Why 2025 Changed Everything in Canada's Political Playbook. People can read it for themselves at ctvnews.ca. But just in closing, we're already into a new year. We're a week in. But one big reason for you why 2025 changed everything.
Oh, there's so much to it. I think the election of Mark Carney as prime minister was a huge change. People thought that the Liberal Party was dead, and it was for a while. Pierre Poilievre was measuring the drapes in the prime minister's office, essentially. And what I took away from 2025 is how fickle the world can be, and all of this has to do with Donald Trump, right? The shift in people's confidence in who can lead a country when you've got a leader like him down south has kind of led us where we are. And he was a gift to Carney and a curse to Poilievre. So 2025 was an interesting year. I think 2026 is going to be a very interesting year domestically. I don't think people are paying enough attention to the internal in Canada politics of whether or not there's an election. Not everyone is paying attention to Quebec, and I think they need to pay attention to Quebec because they might hold the power on what happens federally if the PQ wins an election and gives the federal bloc party a lot of power on whether or not they can trigger an election federally, because there's a big referendum risk in Quebec right now, and I think people need to pay attention. We talk a lot about Alberta sovereignty, but we treat the Quebec issue as a past issue. It's not. It's very live. It's very well right now. So I think I would pay a lot of attention to that. But 2026 is going to be an interesting year. We're going to see new faces in federal government. There's going to be by-elections. There's going to be more MPs that are leaving from the Liberal Party. There's going to be appointments. There's so many things happening. And of course, we've got the CUSMA renegotiations that are going to really kick off. So I think we have an exciting year ahead of us.
Yeah, I've got a million more questions for you, but we'll save it till next time. We got to respect your time and your schedule. Hey, when you say, real quick, in closing, like one sentence, I promise, when you say the risk of a Quebec referendum, are you talking about the risk of the referendum, or are you talking about the risk of a potential result?
A result. Well, I think both. I think there's a validity to both of them. I think a referendum of its own is going to stir up anxiety for a lot of people and have implications. But I think an outcome, I don't think anyone is prepared for a potential outcome for Quebec to actually want to separate. And no matter how hard politicians and Canadians can try, there will always be a belief that Quebec is its own nation amongst those within Quebec. And I think that we have to be very careful. If the PQ can win and form government provincially, there is nothing that is going to stop Blanchette federally to say, for example, if there is a vote of confidence or there is a vote in the House that can cause the government to fall, if they can see an opportunity to increase their Quebec nationalist agenda, the Bloc doesn't care about the rest of the country. They will trigger an election. And that could be detrimental to the feds in a way that I don't think anyone is really planning for. So I think Quebec is going to be the it thing to watch this year, and I don't think people are paying enough attention to it.
We sure appreciate your perspective, Sharan. Thanks for making time for us again. Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to your next appearance here on Real Talk.
Keep the good comments coming.
Oh, we appreciate it. That's Sharan Carr, former senior staffer in the Federal Finance Office, principal at Navigator, and of course you see her weekly on national, in particular on CTV. You can read her work all across the board as well. Let us know what you think about this. To talk at RyanJesperson.com. If you're watching this later on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment. I want to get to what many of you have to say in our live chat powered by Park Power. We have an awesome email from Daryl who wrote into the show following our conversation with Supriya on Monday. That was the 5th of January, our first show back. More to come here on the show. First, I want to flag what's happening with our friends at Friesen Brothers. They're into year 71 now, if you can believe it, in the province of Alberta. This is still a family-owned institution, 16 different locations. Friesen Brothers has always understood that good family time happens around the table, and that's good food. Friesen Brothers is all about that, and that includes in year 70, they opened up this new Mother Dough Bread Co., the first location in our home city of Edmonton. Absolutely fantastic stuff in Winterburn Point. You can check it out online at motherdoughbreadco.com. That's where you will note that they've got a brand new Southwest pork, a smoked pork baguette. How good does that sound? For a limited time only, they've also got the Farmhouse Club, a pesto chicken caprese, a Sunday beef pot roast sandwich, that's my personal favorite, and more, including their sourdough cinnamon buns. You can learn more at motherdoughbreadco.com or give them a visit if you happen to be anywhere near Edmonton's Winterburn Point. A big shout out to our friends at Friesen Brothers. You know, Albertans are winning every single day. How about those Oilers last night? Another Hattie for McDavid, 500 assists for Nuge. If you were invested in the game, emotionally or otherwise, we hope you were doing it at playalberta.ca or by way of the Play Alberta app. You know, from major casino winners every hour to jackpots worth millions, hundreds of popular games, and money that stays in the province, there's never been a better time to sign up for Play Alberta. You can download the app today to get started with casino, sports, and lottery all in one app. You've got to be 18 or over to play. When you gamble, please use your game sense. Have you booked your free consultation yet at California Closets? You've made that New Year's resolution. You've promised yourself or your significant other that you're going to get organized this year, and nobody can help you do that better than California Closets, a proud Canadian-owned company that manufactures all of its installations right here in Alberta. That's all guaranteed for life, whether it's a garage storage system, maybe it's a Murphy bed to turn that home office into a guest room and right back again, an entertainment center, the dream walk-in closet, maybe a laundry room that you'll actually enjoy spending time in. California Closets can custom design to fit your space and your budget. It all starts with a conversation, and you can request that, a free consultation, risk-free, at californiaclosets.ca. And if you're intent on getting your retirement or wealth planning sorted in 2026, you've been successful in business, but you want to make sure that that is passed down. You want to make sure that both your corporate entity and your family is well positioned for future bumps in the road, the twists and turns that life brings. We recommend North Road Investment Council wholeheartedly. This Edmonton-based team partners with discerning families, foundations, and associations across the country, providing expert navigation through the complexities of wealth accumulation and investment advisory services. They offer strategic approaches to wealth management that will align with your vision. That's key. And you can learn more. Connect with Marshall Carey and the team at North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. Our thanks to Sharan Carr for joining us remotely. We'll have to get her into our historic downtown Edmonton studio here in Mercer Warehouse sometime. Maybe fly her out. It'd be nice to get her. Always those in-person interviews, wonderful, but we appreciate Sharan joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. I was surprised to see...
wish we had a car sound when
well, why don't we get one? We'll get an AMG.
Tomorrow, guys.
We'll get one of their AMG, the GT63s that can give us a real... Wow! Right?
Hey, here's the thing, though. As a DJ, you enter one sound effect, Ryan, and then all of a sudden there's going to be there's going to be all sorts of bells and whistles.
My personal favorite is always the bwomp bwomp. Yeah. Shout out to to Daniel, who's watching us on Facebook right now. He's not offering a bouquet to Sharan. He says that crazy liberal is always whining against Pierre Poilievre on CTV. Says she's an unhinged liberal with a serious case of Poilievre derangement syndrome. The reason I read that, I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate that this audience represents from across the political spectrum, sees things differently, and shows up here on a daily basis, John, for robust debate. Can we celebrate that?
And most of all, thank you for starting drinking at around 8 a.m. We love that. Comment
maybe
around
still
9.
Maybe still going from 8 p.m. Meta Modern says, not liking a dictator, but also recognizing that it's wrong and illegal to kidnap a foreign leader is not a hot take, people.
No.
Meta Modern says these thoughts don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Not at all.
Meta Modern throws a bullseye there.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm concerned about with all this is all the things, whether it's Sharan Carr saying it or any conservative on the right who have said it as well, it sets a dangerous precedent for people to, who I'm thinking of is China and Putin, who are like, why can't we take Ukraine? You're taking Venezuela. You're talking about taking Greenland. You're threatening to take Canada. Why can't we just take what we feel was already ours before anyways?
If you live in Taiwan right now, you're going, oh boy. But I thought that was remarkable. First of all, we played the Florida Senator's Rick Scott's comments on, he's like, we're gonna turn things around in Cuba. We're gonna turn things around here, there, and everywhere. And you're kind of going, what is on the docket here?
It's like the Oprah of invasion. We're gonna take Greenland. We're gonna take Canada. We're gonna fix
the EU. We're gonna redraft and redraw the UN. Can you imagine Trump redrafting the UN?
But one thing Sharan said that I think is totally right is somewhere in a war room with the craziest general Trump has under his, umbrella, they've sat down and looked at a map and said, hey, if we can get this piece, pretty much the left side of the world map is ours. And that's what we need to go up against when they look on the other side, Russia and China, right? That's what they're doing. So
this is
it's not a conspiracy theory to think that they've thought ahead.
Well,
right?
let me get you. Why don't we get to this? And there's a lot of commentary on Machado saying that she was. To Sean Hannity, I was surprised at kind of how specific, or at least how definitive her answer was. There was no humming, or we'll see what time brings. This is what politicians always do. We'll see how it plays out. I would be open to that sort of a thing, or we'd be willing to discuss the whatever. She's just basically like, I can't wait to give him the Nobel Peace Prize, which I thought was wild. Christine in our live chat says that she lost any respect she may have had for Machado. We're talking about they don't really refer to them as this, the reigning Nobel. You're not the Nobel Peace Prize champion, but you're a recipient of it. She's the most recent recipient. Christine says when she indicated she might share her Peace Prize with Trump, she says that's absolutely appalling. Others are saying, well, we're Republicans supposed to be against participation trophies? Isn't that kind of like conservative principle? It doesn't really make sense. And White Tree, I saw, was chiming in on this as well. Says this is what she wants, though. Machado power at any cost. Daryl sent us an email following our Monday episode with Supri on the 5th of January. He said, this is to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Thank you, he says, for the insightful interviews with Supriya on Monday and Raheem Mohammed from the National Post on Tuesday. I like how Daryl writes this. He says, I listened with nervous interest because this latest development with Venezuela, the threat of Greenland's annexation, has me very anxious over the risk to Canada's future sovereignty. He says, you mentioned, Ryan, that people may scoff or may not even be worried about the thought that this could happen to Canada, but this situation simply proves to me that this is surely an imminent threat. He said, you mentioned comments that you got, replies you got, that you're fear-mongering over all of this. He says, I don't think it's fear-mongering. He says, this shit is real, and it's only a matter of time before they start to really think more seriously on that 51st state garbage. Daryl says, we and really the world has been backed into a corner already by Trump, so I understand why our politicians have barely said boo about Venezuela, but it's detestable. If we don't stand up to bullies now, who's going to be there when it's us they attack? Daryl says, I was talking to my 13-year-old daughter about this. Like a lot of you process a lot of your perspective, the world developments, trends, right? You're thinking about your kids, your grandkids, right? That's a normal thing. He says, I'm talking to my 13-year-old about the implications this has for Canada, how upset I am. She was wondering why I'm so worried since Canada and the U.S. are friends. And I told her the U.S. government wouldn't be interested in us because of trade or energy. It's because of our water, says Daryl. He says it keeps our We look at these International Boundary Waters Treaties Act, the Boundary Waters Treaty. He says people can Google that if they want. Keeps our waterways safe from major diversions. The U.S. is already in major drought, and all that needs to happen for the current admin to justify Canada's takeover is for any of their major cities to run dry. Says they already have their eye on us, calling us the 51st state. They have the most powerful military in the world. Who's to say that they won't turn on us tomorrow? Hold guns to our head and say, give us your water. They've demonstrated they don't give two shits about international law, political decorum, or even facts for that matter. He says you also, by the way, talked to Supriya about how this delegation of separatist Albertans went to Washington to meet with the U.S. State Department, allegedly, to discuss Alberta's potential separation. And she asked why the U.S. admin would even take that meeting. I believe she referred to them as chuckleheads. He says, are you kidding? Says there are people, going to the U.S. State Department offering the oil capital of North America on a silver platter without the U.S. even having to lift a finger. He says, never mind Venezuela. No shit, they took that meeting. He says, did you see the flags map that they've made? He says, we're next. He's talking about the stars and stripes over Greenland, the continental U.S., Alaska, and the province of Alberta. Daryl says, Jespo, I am scared for so many reasons. And then in all caps, isn't anyone else? We're not trying to whip people into a frenzy or fearmonger, as it's been suggested, but it just feels like all bets are off, and it doesn't feel like we've always had that thing. We fought together through the Second World War. We, our airports opened up on 9/11 to bring in those American flights that couldn't land stateside, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just feels like, I don't want to say none of it matters anymore, but I will say none of it matters to the current president, or at least it seems that way.
No, but I'll give some flowers to the current president, which people are like, oh no, what are you going to say? But I don't think his land grab talk is actually about land grabbing, because that would require real work. It costs a lot of money, it requires long-term governance. You got to create endless political liability. That's not what Trump's about. He's about the talk about it, right? His ultimate goal isn't land. It's kind of like leverage and dominance over people. And that's what that one senator was talking about. Like with Greenland, it would be easy to go over there and say, hey, we want to put a base on every on northeast, southwest here, we want to do this, we want to do that. Greenland, it's 30,000 people. You think they'd be like, no, we don't want more infrastructure and more like hand-holding with the U.S.? Of course they'd say yes to it. But Trump's getting more support and controlling and assuming more dominance by simply saying it, by putting the words out there, by getting you and me to talk about it on this podcast every day for a month, is giving him more power and control than if Greenland was just like, here, we surrender, right? That's not what he wants, right?
Yeah.
Then you got to go over there, you got to spend money, you got to like even this stuff with somebody the other day was like, well, what if they offered Mexico, an open border to the States? Boom, they could automatically get Mexico, and then it would be Canada, Mexico, the whole continent. And I'm like, do you realize how much chaos that would ensue? Not only trying to make one currency and one tax system, but just opening up a border like that. It's way too much work for Trump. He'd rather he'd rather just scream about it.
They're still building the wall. You can't build the wall and then open the border.
And then you tear it down.
I mean, you are creating jobs.
Now it's the States.
You're creating jobs. If you want to look at it that way. You are right. We're talking about this a lot because it's what's happening. It's not the only thing that's happening, though, and I do want to let this audience know that, of course, we keep our focus as zoomed out and wide as possible, serving this audience, not just in our home province of Alberta and in kind of our neck of the woods, Western Canada, but, of course, across the country and beyond, and that includes coming up tomorrow, a conversation where we're going to bring things back to Alberta. We have a big show tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of eyes on it, and we want to let you know we'll be making that announcement about an hour before that show goes live, but an exclusive on January 8th. That's our Thursday episode, a one-on-one with an individual at the center of one of the biggest political stories in Canada right now. She has not, as of yet, gone on the record in a long-form interview, and she will be doing that on Real Talk. That's our next episode. You can always subscribe to our somewhat admittedly irregular newsletter. Shout out to Peter Mansbridge, who gets his done on a weekly basis. I think Rachel Gilmore, friend of the show, I've seen hers go out, I think, every single day. I don't know how these folks have the time, but if you go to ryanjesperson.com, scroll down to the bottom, you already know that you've had the heads up. We got that big exclusive coming. It's free, of course, to subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that or catch the show on January 8th. We had our Real Talk, our annual Zoom VIP holiday party, the holiday Zoom party on the 23rd of December. And it was fun to gather with a whole bunch of Real Talk Patreon supporters, YouTube channel members who had exclusive access to that event. And they were all guessing in the live chat who this exclusive was going to be with. And I will say that one individual, we didn't recognize it. We didn't award them that trophy yet. They didn't get the ribbon to pin on the wall for correctly identifying it, but we did have one person correctly identify who that interview will be with. So a big shout out to them. I thought that the Mark Kelly thing, Senator Mark Kelly out of Arizona, was pretty interesting as well. For people that have been following this story, it's been an interesting one. He's been censured by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and by the president, as a matter of fact, as well, of course, Kelly for comments that he's made, criticisms that he's made toward the White House. And it's kind of been, I don't know if you want to say a bit of a pissing match, but Kelly's taken none of it and really pushing back. And a video that he released in follow-up to being censored
this is
on
a military
Monday.
guy?
Yeah, this is, well, I mean, he's a senator now, but it's wild. And his family has been greatly impacted, not just by politics, by public service as well. And this was something that was really making the rounds. I'm sure that Real Talkers have seen this, most engaged, most informed talk audience in the country. But in case you haven't, here's the clap back. It was, really, really strong stuff.
I've got a question for you. How many generations of Donald Trump's family have served in the military? 0. Now, for me and my family, service to our country is in my blood. My great-grandfather served in the U.S. Navy after immigrating from Ireland. Both of my grandfathers served during World War II. Both of my parents wore uniforms. My dad in the 82nd Airborne, and both of them as career police officers. And when it was our turn, my brother and I started as volunteer EMTs, as teenagers, before becoming Navy captains, pilots in the United States Navy, and NASA astronauts. Donald Trump, he deferred the draft 5 times because he had bone spurs. Look, not everyone has to serve in our military. I get that. But when you're gonna question my patriotism and lecture me about duty to this country and threaten me with a court-martial, 4 generations of service to this country earns me the right to speak. 5 deferments earns nothing.
So there you go. This is after the former Navy pilot's participation in a video that called on troops to resist unlawful orders triggered the response from the defense secretary, from Pete Hegseth. The censure is like, so I was reading about this, and I'll credit reporting from the Associated Press, the AP, who did this. It's like a formal letter, and there may be little practical consequence, but you can understand how it would piss him off. Hegseth describing it as a necessary process step to proceedings that could result in a demotion from Kelly's retired rank of captain and a subsequent reduction in retirement pay. I guarantee this has absolutely nothing with the potential reduction in his retirement pay, as if he gives a shit about that. But this is obviously on principle. This is a guy that was a NASA astronaut. This is a guy that's serving as a U.S. senator. This is a guy whose wife was shot in the head and barely survived. I mean, like the level of respect that the Kelly family has and that the senator has, I think, is significant. And this is a story, I mean, this is one to watch, as they say, and certainly one that we're keeping our eye on. Back to the live chat, powered by Park Power. Real Talkers are humming in this one today. Explorer Hollis, shout out to you, says if Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney's positions were switched, the right would be screaming and crying about Carney making commentary about foreign affairs, right? It's just not Pierre's place to speak out on foreign affairs. I don't know about that, Hollis. I think people want to know from an opposition leader, like, you know, they want them to be presenting their best prime ministerial perspectives, right? Like, what would the world look like? What would Canada look like if Pierre Poilievre was prime minister? They want to hear from him. If he's not going to put something out there, then people will suggest that he's not capable of it, or he can't rise to the moment. Interesting debate in a recent episode of ours on Real Talkers in the chat, debating whether or not provincial premiers should have takes on what's gone down in Venezuela. Michael says there's a strain of conservative thinking that naively thinks that dealing with Trump and the American administration in politics and diplomacy is sort of business as usual. He says Poilievre's statement should be disqualified. Gilles says supply access will increase in the United States, talking about oil, which will decrease prices. Competitive means at market prices, which will drop. That's something people need to consider. Cliff, what's up, Cliff, says if Canadian oil is so competitive and we need to get it to market ASAP, then let's remove that tanker ban so that another layer of red tape is removed. This is the consultation that's happening right now, and a lot of this stuff's happening behind the scenes. People are going to go, well, what happened? Remember all this talk about the MOU and the agreement signed with Danielle Smith and Mark Carney, and what's happening now? There is a deadline to that coming up about midway through 2026. And a lot of people are going to, be curious. These aren't consultations, negotiations that are happening in front of microphones at news conferences, right? But that tanker ban, emissions caps, all this stuff factors into where this is all going to go. Jim says there are some that would argue that the liberal rules-based order or the international law-based order is over. Tony says, I'm still holding out that there are people in the White House and Congress and Senate that will stand up to Trump before it's too late. She says, I honestly do feel that will happen. I guess you got to ask what would prompt that to happen, right? Like, what was the comment? It was it was a one-sentence comment earlier in the show. I read it. Somebody said, what will or who will actually stop Donald Trump? What has to happen for Trump to be stopped? You would have thought, and it feels like ancient history now. Of course, it's not. You would have thought that the events of January 6th would have been something to stop Trump, that would have been it, that guy would never see the White House again. What did he do? He came back and, in pretty convincing fashion, took back the Oval Office 4 years later. So, I don't know. Nothing really feels normal anymore. Les, in the chat, can anyone remember what the world was like before Trump? There's kind of a recency bias, right? A lot of people, when sort of like look longingly back to when George W. Bush was president, for example, or maybe some folks in Alberta, not all, but some look back and long or yearn for Jason Kenney again. I'm serious though. You look back, you look at what's happening now, and a lot of people look at like the Alberta government and the moves that they're making, and they go, oh gosh, Danielle Smith, this, that, and look who she's taking advice from, and look who she's working with, and look who she's satiating with some of these policies. Jason Kenney would never do that. Those same people were pretty upset with Jason Kenney when he was premier. I don't know. I'm not laughing at it. I'm just saying there is that recency bias that comes into play for sure. Cactus Sheriff thinks that I'm being mighty optimistic, says the end of Donald Trump will not stop the new version of American politicians just like him. Where do you land on this? You've shared with us before. We don't pretend, Johnny, that you fly in on the Real Talk private jet every morning from Florida, but it is your state of origin. It is your state of origin, and you do represent, to a certain degree, a dual citizen's perspective on this show. Sure. And Florida, of course, is when it comes to where the American political temperature can be taken, Florida is one of those states.
Yeah, it's hot there, and it's also, it's hot and wild.
Yeah,
every sense of the word.
I don't want to compare. Jimmy Kimmel had a funny, listen, guys, we always want to play like Jon Stewart and Jimmy Kimmel on this, but we get flagged on YouTube, and they just wipe our episodes out, so we can't play them. But Kimmel had this thing where he basically was talking about Maduro and Trump, and he's like, he's talking about, Maduro being arrested, and he goes, he's a vicious dictator who's taken, deals to benefit his family and this, that, and the other, and he goes, and Nicolas Maduro is pretty bad, too. And everyone laughs because the Kimmel-Trump feud is going on. But in so many ways, as Venezuela will probably not turn around overnight,
no,
the United States probably wouldn't either. And I'm not trying to compare the two situations, without being a little too cute. But I think it'll be interesting to see. And didn't I just make fun of people 10 minutes ago who say things like, it'll be interesting to see?
Yeah. And didn't I just say Donald Trump doesn't like work?
But after the Donald Trump tenure, where does the pendulum swing back, or what does American politics look like after this?
I think that's one of the things that Donald knows right now is like, I probably won't have to deal with the repercussions of this 5-10 years from now. Like I know I like that people are speaking up, even, from the Chamber of Commerce there when we had them on, talking about the Venezuelan people, because I do feel like, that is being used as the backstop to this story, being like, we want to overthrow this dictator. We want life better for them. They're showing pictures of people in these large crowds where there wasn't a lot of them, but there was some people with thank you Trump signs and stuff like that on the street. a lot of people living, with a boot on their neck. I get it. But is Trump, again, is his war room sitting there trying to figure out how they can make life better for those people right now? I don't think that's what they're doing. They're sitting with Chevron and whoever else and all these other companies from other countries who also were pushed out of Venezuela and trying to figure out how to get the oil. And when you take the money above the people, I just think it's a dangerous precedent that is being set right here where, like, people are kind of, I'm not telling you anything new. That's the way the world is, right? Money above people, right? But this is like we're letting Putin do what he wants in Ukraine, but then we're going and doing this. It just seems ridiculous to me, right?
I'm going to be curious to see what comes out of these Paris meetings on the Ukraine
Right?
file. That's something we're paying attention to, obviously, like everybody else. Nia in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Thanks for your YouTube channel membership, Nia. We appreciate you. Says, you keep people in fear, you keep them isolated, you keep them angry, and that translates into a loss of empathy, and it makes it a lot easier for tyrants to take control. You know what I love about Nia's comment? It kind of, and I'm not just trying to backsell our most recent episode. I'm not just trying to get more downloads on our most recent episode, okay, on the 6th of January. But Trina Moyals talking about her book Black Bear, which when I first got this book, if you guys missed that interview, it's not the same. It's not like firebrand, loud speaking politics, which is what a lot of talk shows can be, including this one. It was like such a casual, relaxed conversation for about an hour about her book and talking about like coexisting with bears and the bear population, management, essentially wildlife management across the country, in particular the boreal forest in BC and Alberta and yada, yada, yada. But she also talks about like family. She talks about the loss of her brother. She talks about, estranged relationships. She talks about addiction. She talks about in bear country, in particular in remote northern communities. This is what Nia's comment prompted in my recent memory. And the real threats to these folks living in so-called bear country, she says, and she made the context specifically that it's oftentimes, or in most cases, not the bears that represent the biggest threat to these people living in these remote communities. And she just developed this really interesting thought. I just wanted to flag that interview for you. It's in the back half of our January 7th, our January 6th episode, and with Trina Moyals, her new book, Black Bear. I thought that was really, really excellent. MA says people have their heads in the sand right now. Randy says if Quebec leaves, the Liberals are finished. Can you picture it? It'd be bizarre. It'd be absolutely bizarre. I know that Quebec has its own. I mean, how do you put this? How do you phrase it? They talk about this distinct society. In Quebec, certainly Quebecers march to a different beat, to the beat of a different drum. And Quebec's history goes back. I mean, when you talk history, you've got to recognize the Indigenous history across Canada and all that. But like you look at these Quebec cities and, I don't know, in Alberta we celebrate, and I'm not taking swipes at our beloved home province, but like Alberta's like 121 years old this year. And we're thrilled about that. Like Quebec City's like 400 plus years old. Like Quebec's its own thing, unique language and the sort of secular culture and the way that equalization works out and serves the Quebec population, the power that Quebec has in federal elections. And I know that rubs a lot of Westerners the wrong way, and for valid and understandable reasons. There's also been interesting developments we've talked about on this show over the past couple of years where Albertans are finding more similarities and maybe more synergy with Quebec. But I have a really hard time picturing Canada. I mean, obviously without Alberta for obvious reasons based on where we live and what's in front of our own faces here. But Canada without Quebec, I'd have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Looking at our Olympic roster, our men's hockey roster, I think we'd still be okay. I think we'd still be okay. Quebec, whatever happened to the Quebec goalie factory? They just stopped producing top tier goaltenders. We used to have this embarrassment of riches. Whatever happened to the Quebec goalie factory? All right. I want to get to more of your comments, and we will. Keep the live chat going. And for those of you that are listening or watching this later, talk@ryanjesperson.com is where you can get in touch with us.
Just before we move on, I saw a great clip of amazing, now, of course, passed away from cancer comedian Norm Macdonald. He
rest
said
in peace.
They were just talking about New York and how, like, you hear crazy stuff on the subway and whatever. And they were just talking about their favorite times in New York, him and some other comedians on this podcast. And he said, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen or heard in New York? And Norm Macdonald said, one time I was walking by these two homeless people, and out of the corner of my ear, I just hear one of them say, you never played goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens.
Amazing.
And I just thought of that as you were talking about Quebec.
Amazing. Ms. Katie, okay, I promise I'll spend no more than 30 seconds on this. Do you remember when our Olympic rosters were like, who's going to start?
Yeah.
Is it going to be like Patrick Waugh or Martin Brodeur, or like our third goaltender would be like Marty Turco or Curtis Joseph?
Yeah,
and I'm not even mentioning like a million others. The era of like Roberto Luongo and Marc-Andre Fleury, and like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, it was
like, respectfully.
Stacked all
respectfully.
the time. Yeah.
The Americans are stacked. We would take any of the Americans. Anyway, I promise no more than 30 seconds, so I'll stop. Yeah. A man of my word. Ms. KD says, I guess that Quebec has forgotten what the last referendum did to their economy. Emily G, an interesting question to me. She says, Real Talk, are you still glad you had Jeff Rath on?
Of course.
Yeah? Why wouldn't I be? 100%. You guys understand, like, and I know you know this, and Emily knows this for sure, I'm sure too. I appreciate your comments, Emily, almost every show. Like, when we bring people on, I don't bring them on to like fillet them. We don't bring people on to like to indicate our endorsement of their perspectives. Far from the case. We're going to bring people on. I bring people on this show from time to time, frankly, that I think are like absolute fucking morons, and get them on the record. And that's not to say that we stack our roster with those types of guests. Number one, because this audience sniffs them out in a second and just chews them up. And sometimes it's entertaining. We're not trying to like lower the bar on where we think discourse needs to be, but I absolutely think it's 100% imperative to have people like Jeff Rath on the show, to hold them to task. I'll stand by the tone of the interview. Like Rath's gone, I would say, more unhinged since then.
Yeah.
Since I suggested on Boxing Day that in other countries, the moves that he's pulling, his tomfoolery.
Since the AGM, you might look back at that interview and be like, it was a little soft. I wouldn't say that at the time. But now, like, he's going so far. Like, all he needs is that mugshot. Like Raheem said yesterday on the show, all he needs is for somebody to put him in handcuffs, get him to that next level, because I mean, when you're on the show, it's telling him to his face, you're an unelected official.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not against the law for you to go down there and talk to people, but don't you see a problem with it? And then he goes off on these tangents with numbers and things and people, but he can't name a single person he's met with.
Oh, yeah.
And it's secret, and it's behind closed doors and stuff like that. I think since the AGM, things have definitely, the temperature's gone up. And again, I think Sharan alluded to that today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like people like Jeff, but people everywhere just feel like they have a bigger lane. They have a bigger, you know what I mean? They're taking more liberties with how they talk about how they feel. When I used to like it a little, didn't you like Real Talkers when we all kind of hid some parts of ourselves? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying though? But there's some things like we used to just be like, you know what? I would love to say this out loud, but I'm just going to bury it deep inside.
Are you referring to a time when like whether or not you'd had your flu shot was not an indicator of like your entire political wiring?
Can't we just act like we're sitting at a table with our grandparents having dinner when we're having political discussions? Just kind of keep the tone a little bit down. You know what I mean? Be a little more polite.
Yeah.
Don't think for like 10 seconds before you say what you're about to say when you know it's from some back alley recess in your mind.
Emily, by the way, went on to say, after asking me about Rath in our live chat, she says she remembers she was in elementary school when that last Quebec referendum went down. And I don't know about you. Do you have a formative moment? I can already think of mine. I don't even have to take more than 1 second to remember it. Do you have a formative moment of something that happened in your elementary school era, specifically elementary school, a news event that happened?
No, I can't remember. Other than I think that the shuttle.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, but other
Challenger.
than that, like somebody just mentioned,
was that 86, I think?
Yeah, congrats to a Cactus Sheriff who's younger than I. He says 9/11 was during his elementary, I think, or maybe that was his high school. I don't know, but that obviously was like that is the event I remember most from under 30s, like, was 9/11. And before that, I guess it was the shuttle exploding, right? That you talked about as your most memorable.
That was the one I remember, like, most vividly in that era, right? Like of what would I have been? I would have been like
we all gathered
old.
around.
Well, and
they rolled in
everybody watched it happen.
And then we were like, oh my God.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to happen.
It was the first time, like, real, like, reality. Like, I'm not even sure we realized it at the time because we were young. Like, our brains were like, what is happening? But, like, a bunch of people just, were burned, incinerated, like, in front of us.
Yeah.
Live on TV.
Yeah. This is amazing from Tony. Guys, I have to say, not having to go to work, still in my PJs, listening to Real Talk, haven't even brushed my teeth yet, says Tony. Retirement is bliss. Tony, it sounds to me like you might need to get your hands on a bottle of Hanson Distillery's.
I was just going to say
mint chocolate cream liqueur, girl.
Sounds like Tony's one of those early morning drinkers.
We might have to get Tony a retirement gift. Hey, we're going to have 300 people claiming to just be recently retired in our live chat if we start doing that. Erica says the reality is we're in a situation where we got to be very careful how we deal with the Americans. We're way too small and way too weak to be belligerent, no matter how good it would feel in the short term. Erica, well, I hate to see someone on the heels of me talking about Olympic hockey describe us as small and weak. I absolutely agree with you. This has got to be chess, not checkers. Canada has to manage this. I mean, we don't want to compromise our principles on how we feel about international law, international order, international relationships, NATO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we've also got to consider Kuzma and trade and, right? Like, that's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious to me. Want to get to more of your comments, but hey, listen, it is Wednesday, and every Wednesday we have a chance to get out to the mountains. And this courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper. And this is a very special month. If you know Jasper, you know that Jasper in January is this long-standing tradition that I'm thrilled and very honored and lucky, quite frankly, to be able to participate in and celebrate. We make sure to get out to Jasper National Park literally every single January. And right now, as the official festivities loom, we want to shine a spotlight on one of our favorite spots there. That's Evil Dave's Restaurant. They're celebrating a big anniversary this month, their 20th anniversary. So a big shout out to Mike and the team at Evil Dave's. You can sample Evil Dave's via 2 brand new standout food and drink events. So I wanted to make sure we put this on your calendar during Jasper in January. One of them is the Après wine, and then they got a chef's table experience. I'll tell you about that in just a second. But this Après wine event that they're doing, this is going to go down January 16th and 17th. So get it in your calendars. It's going to be showcasing regional flavors and paired with Canadian wines. Or as you're about to hear from Evil Dave's owner, operator, founder, Mike Day. This is hilarious. It sounds like it's kind of maybe more about the wine pairing with some food, which is amazing. But if you love Jasper, if you know Jasper, you know Evil Dave's, and you know that Mike and his family are some of the biggest champions of this tourism crown jewel. And our friends at Tourism Jasper are actually kind enough to connect with Mike, to check in with him, and to get him on camera for us so we could make sure that we featured him here on My Jasper Memories. And so here he is. This is just a quick introduction to one of the biggest beauties you'll ever meet at one of my absolute favorite Jasper restaurants. Here's Mike Day at Evil Dave's.
It's a family-run business, and all of our children, all 5 of our children, have worked with us at some point. And our daughter Sierra is currently the restaurant manager. Since we've owned the restaurant, we've hosted all of our Christmas dinners here, because now with 5 children, their 5 spouses, 5 grandchildren, like our starting number is more than we have seats in our house. The Après Wine Tour is new this year. What we thought would be interesting is for people to be able to experience wines from all over the world, from multiple different wineries, in a progressive setting. So normally a wine tour would be in wine country, but since we're here in the Rocky Mountains, we thought it would be fun to take people on a bus from restaurant to restaurant. They can sample 4 to 5 wines from each rep in each place. That could be 32 to 40 wines. We're going to be supplementing that with a reasonably large amount of food so that people can have that right balance of food and wine. And the whole event's going to take place over about 4 hours. So it'll be a very interesting full day where you'll be certainly full and probably tapped out of wine by the end of it.
Okay, so that's Mike and Evil. Johnny, 40 different wines, almost enough to keep you well watered through the entire evening. So we got to make sure we get out there.
How do you even sample 40?
Well, I mean,
you get to about 13, and then you gotta take a nap. Come back 3 hours later.
I'm thinking of Paul Giamatti and Sideways. Like,
jeez,
if you're at these wineries, like, do you
live there for a week?
You just pound it. So it's going to be this après wine tour is going to touch down Evil Dave's Grill, Olive Bistro, another phenomenal spot, Papa George's, and Silverwater. These are like top shelf A-list Jasper, as I say, houses of hospitality. So each pour paired with these chef-inspired bites and storytelling from the wine reps across the country. Very cool. You can dress up, you can relax, take in the winter magic without worrying about transportation, right? They've got the complimentary shuttles, which is perfect. That'll take you through all the different spots, and a 45-minute guided tasting, and then you're kind of on your own. You can do whatever you like and just enjoy your time out there. There's also the chef's table experience, which I want to make sure we mention. You can gather around a shared table and enjoy 5 different chef-curated courses at any of Jasper's premier restaurants. We mentioned them already: Papa George's, Silverwater, Olive Bistro, and Evil Dave's Grill. Each restaurant's got their own unique menu designed to delight your palate. Wine and spirit reps are going to guide you through the tasting notes of expert pairings, and then they got the insider background and the tasting notes behind each pour. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't always remember everything I learn about every winery, but I love the opportunity to learn about it from somebody who knows what they're talking about as you're enjoying it, and just kind of, it just adds a whole other layer to the experience. There are package deals available when you're booking both the après wine and the chef's table experience. That's going to be on the 17th of January, the chef's table. What a wonderful opportunity. You can learn more by checking out jasper.travel/January, and then we'll link to the specific après wine and chef's table experiences in the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. It's going to be an amazing time. I'm going to be heading out there this weekend, friends, so follow me on Instagram if you don't already at Ryan Jesperson. I'm going to be sharing some stories, seeing what we see out there. I'll give you a real-time snow report from Marmot Basin. Looking forward to that. Check in with our friends at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge and other spots. And Johnny, we'll be doing the late night tours at the Atha Bee, and we'll probably have to make our way around to the Whistle Stop and everywhere else. So if you're out in Jasper this weekend, I hope to see you. If you come up to me, you know how this works. You come up and you mention Real Talk. If you see me out in Jasper, chances are I'm going to buy you a beer. My Jasper Memories is proudly presented every Wednesday right here on Real Talk by our friends at Tourism Jasper. Interesting comment in our live chat. Christine says there's huge damage to the relationship between Canada and the U.S., and it's going to take a lot to repair that relationship if a sane person is eventually elected after Donald Trump. I know a lot of people think my head's in the clouds on this one. I'm not. I mean, yes, politics moves slowly until it moves fast. You know what I mean? Same with policy. Same with international. I mean, a lot of times it's like the big government kind of thing and the mechanism of it all and the slow nature of all the maddening delays that people see. Around things like consultations. We were just talking about getting a pipeline built, or those of you that take the position of opposing a pipeline. Same deal. But it seems to me that in politics, when a new government is elected, and we've seen this in a number of different nations, these relationships can be restored or rehabilitated starting overnight with a smile and a fresh handshake. And you look at how the tone can change in an instant. Some folks will roll their eyes at this example, but I even look at, you talk about the strained relationship, the sort of like aggrieved perspective that Alberta has had toward Ottawa, and that many Albertans have claimed that Ottawa has had toward Alberta. And then you look at the handshake and the laughs and the smiles at the Calgary Stampede, and then after the Grey Cup with Danielle Smith and Mark Carney, and everybody goes, gosh, that happened quickly. Whether or not it's real, whether or not it turns into anything actual remains to be seen. But I feel like the tone can change quickly. Then again, maybe I'm just fooling myself. Let me know what you think. To talk at ryanjesperson.com. This feels like I'm just setting up for another flamethrower coming up this Friday. We wrap that up every week with our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. You can send us your hottest takes to talk at ryanjesperson.com. We got a bunch this week. We'd like to see more, though. We'll pick the very, very best, and you'll hear them as we wrap our episode coming up on Friday. Johnny Infamous.
What?
I'm trying to decide. I'm having this internal dialogue in my brain whether or not I am fooling myself about the state of the. I'm not going to say about the state of the Canada-U.S. relationship because it is very strained right now, and I am very concerned, and I find it difficult. My buddy was telling me the other day, and this is kind of wild. They live in Vancouver. Their little guy's playing hockey, U9, so he's like 8 years old. And they play in like a Pacific League for these kids, which means that there's BC-based teams and there's Washington State-based teams, and they compete against. These are little kids, right? These are like 7 and 8 year olds playing U9 hockey. And he told me that I heard this just the other day. An email went out to all the parents, talking to them about. It's not funny, but it's also very funny. Talking to the parents about anti-American comments that are coming from parents in the stands towards the American kids that are on the ice. And it's just like, it's funny, but it's not funny, like, to be clear, right? But like Canadian parents are chirping 7 and 8 year old American kids that are driving up to Vancouver to play U9 hockey. And that to me is like an indicator that something's a little off with the relationship. Now, hockey parents, and I am one, hockey parents have always been a little off. And I know some people are going to say, what about dance parents? What about skating parents? What about all the other parents?
Sure.
Fair enough. But I just thought, okay.
Ballet mom's the worst.
Ballet. I think ballet families, are they? No, they could be prim and proper, don't they have to be?
Yeah. But I don't want to be like a whole show of hot takes where I totally, go back on what I said 2 minutes ago, because I just said we need more decorum, we need more politeness when we're talking, and being about politics, and pretend your grandparents are in the room and try not to say every thought that's in the back of your head. But when it comes to sports, I don't like them soft. Like, I mean, I'm saying there's a line where you can be like obviously racist, homophobic, all these things that like get the hell out of the sport.
Sure.
But I like a little chirping, as long as, like, what are they saying to the Americans?
But not 8-year-olds.
Like,
not 8-year-olds.
Have another cheeseburger there, America. Like, what are they saying? As long as it's friendly, fun chirping, I don't mind it at all. Keep it around.
It can't be adults at 8-year-olds.
No, okay. That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
here's the other thing. Like, I feel like parents going to the game, be involved. Like you're in the stands for a reason, and you're also building up their tolerance.
Building up their tolerance.
No, I'm saying if by chance one of these kids has the gusto to actually get to the NHL, they're going to hear way worse stuff their very first game getting into any rink around the league. But that's not to say that parents should be able to say anything. But I mean, there should be, one side's cheering for one team, one side's cheering for the other.
Yeah.
It's okay to take a shot every now and then.
It was described as anti-American sentiments.
Yeah, see, that doesn't sound
that's
good.
Where,
that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
But I feel like a little chirping is okay, but parents, like, they don't know the line anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's funny.
They become so, like, we see these videos where, like, we don't see any videos where they're like, they're moderate, or it's just a little chirping or a little cheering for the team. We see these ones where you just watch them and you're like, oh my God, if this was my mother or father, like, I would quit. I would quit the sport that day.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, like, my Instagram algorithm is just all, I was telling you yesterday, it's been all bears, because I was getting ready for, I'm talking about the animal ones, the 4-legged ones. Well, I just want to be clear. I mean, I've had other periods where, my algorithm's taken me in other different and interesting directions, around pride, for example.
I was just gonna say, you've got bears, you've got otters, drags,
But
I have a very colorful feed.
Yeah, but I've had my algorithm take me in some very, very interesting places in the past, and that has included what you're talking about.
I want to make clear that I was saying, like, obviously I'm not talking like it's okay for a 45-year-old man to yell at like an 8-year-old or something like that. That's not what I was saying. What I'm saying is I like a bit of chirping. I like a bit of back and forth. I like that parents are involved and they're rooting for their kids, and they're also like not giving them like, on both ends of the spectrum. Like, I don't think that you should be insulting and hurt people's feelings, but on the other side, I don't think like trophies for doing nothing. I don't agree with that either. I think it should fall
with you there.
somewhere in the middle, right? So but I think what we see most of the time is the worst of the worst. Like I was just saying, like maybe the dad who had a couple drinks before they went to the
my
the
algorithm's
game
been hockey parents fist fighting,
screaming in people's faces, and like stuff that you would just be totally humiliated.
And as a kid, I feel like I know we're a little off track here. I promise we'll bring it back in 30 seconds or less. But as a kid, like you're not going to forget at 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 years old. You're not going to forget your dad getting hauled out or banned from the hockey arena. You're
11 a.m.
You're not going to forget
Sunday.
your dad throwing a beer at someone. And I know I'm putting it all on the dads. There's some beauty moms out there too that have. Moms can be the most. I mean, my personal experience as a hockey parent, I've seen some of the moms out there in the stands. They're like in mama bear mode. And you almost have to like pull them back from the glass sometimes. And I just think I try to, and I'm a fiery person. I'm a passionate person, but I try to think like I can remember, and my parents are like about as even keel people as you're going to meet. Like my dad is really contemplative and pretty mellow. And like, I haven't seen a lot of stuff rattle my dad. My mom's I get a little more of my fiery personality from my mom and from her dad, but still always diplomatic, always classy. And my childhood memories of how my parents conducted themselves in public was always that I was proud of how classy they were. But I know that there's a lot of kids that are, and there's probably members of this audience that are like scarred from something that their parent did in public when they were a child. And from the child's perspective, the kid was more mature than the parent.
Sure. I also try to, I always try to put myself in other people's shoes. Like you just mentioned, those moms, those dads who like work a full work week and then on the weekends are driving their kids to games or getting up before work to take them to ice skates and practice and get them to ice time. And like, I get it. Like what made them go off this morning? Are they deprived of sleep? Are the bills piling up? You know what I mean? I always try to put myself, but like, I like a bit of the fire. Like, you can also see like drunk uncle in the stands saying, "Take that, you damn Yankees," as like funny if you saw it in a movie or something, right? Yeah. But there's a line that it crosses, obviously, especially when you're talking about kids playing, where you're like, man, just this should not be anywhere near the game. Like, let's just relax.
Yeah. Camley in here says dance moms are pretty intense.
Super intense.
Aaron says hockey moms can be the worst, and she says I am one, so I can say that. I'm not trying to turn this into moms versus dads, you guys.
No, but
I'm not trying to do that.
There's a lot of money involved. Like when you're talking about hockey and ballet, I think that's why parents are so like, not only do they want their kid to be the best and they want to encourage them, and obviously they're rooting for them the whole time, they're also investing a lot of their own time and money into these things.
Yeah.
So that plays a big role in like how they act. And I just feel like all that, builds up, and then they get a morning or an afternoon where, they're tired or something else is on their mind. Maybe they're having a fight with their spouse or something else financial is making them. And so I always try to give them that bit of leeway. Like what made this person set off this morning or whatever. But I mean, it's not an excuse for behavior. It's just,
I get it. I'm doing a quick bit of research here. While you were talking, I was doing a quick bit of research.
Yeah.
No. Oh. But Wise Kyle in our live chat says, I wonder how Team Alberta will do in the 2030 Olympics. And so I was just doing a quick Google. I knew two names off the top of my head. I knew two names. If Alberta were to be a sovereign nation.
The Tampa Bay Canadians?
Well, we basically, so Cale Makar is obvious. We got the Alberta, Calgary. My hometown of Calgary has produced arguably the best, and I'm about to say something really stupid, you guys. Sorry, it's too early to say this, but arguably the second best NHL defense. I'm going to say the third best. At this point, we'll give Cale Makar the honors of, at this point, probably turning out to be maybe the third best defenseman in NHL history. I'm looking at Bobby Orr and Nicholas.
I've got the full list.
I'm a big Bobby Orr and Nicholas Lidstrom here guy. I know people talk about Ray Bourque and Paul Coffey, but I will say this. So we got Cale Makar, Braden Point, obviously Stanley Cup champion, also out of Calgary, no big deal. Mm-hmm. Who else would Team Alberta have at the Olympics?
Hagel.
Dylan Holloway. Hagel. Yeah. Dylan Holloway, who's like, you don't say his name a lot here in Edmonton anymore. Jake DeBrusk. Louis' boy, obviously effective forward with the Vancouver Canucks. Respectfully, I'm not sure that if Jake's number 4 on your list, no offense to Jake, I love Jake DeBrusk, but if he's number 4 on your list, we'd be in trouble. Peyton Krebs, Brett Howden, Ridley Gregg, like we're in trouble, guys. Colton Parayko, Matt Rempe,
Logan Thompson.
I'm not saying Rempe should be in the Olympics, but what a beauty Rempe would be. Yeah.
Logan Thompson, Parayko.
You know what we could probably do is file like a grievance with the IOC and Willie Nylander, the Toronto Maple Leafs superstar, actually born in Calgary. Although, of course, he does represent Sweden internationally. Alberta might have to like pull a Trump-Maduro move and take Willie Nylander out of bed in Stockholm. Okay. No, not funny. Justin, thank you for your YouTube channel membership. Justin says, I saw a video of a woman throwing beer on a guy at a Ravens-Steelers NFL game, and the dad was with his young son, but like absolutely lost it, and he was screaming obscenities. And Justin said, I just couldn't help but think, like, what a poor kid. Emily says, when my husband coached, one of his players got fed up and screamed at his mom from the ice to shut the fuck up. The player screamed at his own mom to shut up from the bench. Oh my gosh. Ken, by the way, super chat Ken, says he was shocked that the hockey hotbed that is Minnesota had such poor attendance at the World Juniors. Says he's betting that ticket costs were stupid knowing the IIHF. Yeah, I mean, especially with Edmonton and Red Deer going to be hosting next year. And I know it's, obviously the Team Canada games will be packed. No matter where, and Canadian hockey fans seem to embrace the World Juniors. No, they do embrace the World Juniors more than anybody else. But I'm with you, Ken. I understand sometimes. I'm not trying to take swipes at different countries here, but like if it's in like, Czech or Latvia or whatever, and you kind of go, yeah, maybe it's not so much on the radar, or maybe the North Americans, not as many can travel there and that sort of a thing. But I was like, Minnesota. Like I thought it would be
Minnesota,
jammed, and it really was not at all. Maybe if Canada would have made it to the gold medal game, maybe that game would have been packed, but even like it looked like it was at half capacity for the gold medal game. So anyway, shout out to the Swedes.
Yeah.
Great performance.
Somebody just asked if I'm rooting for Team USA in the Olympics. I don't know, man. I root for...
Oh, do you have mixed allegiances?
No, we talked about this last time. I always root for Canada because this is where I lived the majority of my life, and this is where I love. But, I mean, it's hard not to, like, when you watch the Olympics... Remember the Dream Team in basketball back in the 90s?
Oh, dude.
Like, it's crazy not to want North America to win in general. But, be careful. Europe is coming up, man, with hockey. We just saw it in the World Juniors. This Olympics may not be as, like, I
love it, though.
That last tournament we saw, the four nations
face-off.
It may not be as cut and dry as that at the Olympics this year.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good thing, right? I think it's a good thing. If you look at, even though our hearts are in our throats a little bit, in 2010, remember when Zach Parise scored with like a minute left to tie the game? Then it went to overtime, and then Iggy DeCrosby, the golden goal, past Ryan Miller. Everybody knows how it went. But like, it wouldn't have been the same. It's not the same feeling if it was like 10-3. I don't know. It's like I like the nail biters.
Like the Dream Team was. You just loved watching it because you're like, America's going to kill Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan. Like, what's happening here, right?
Yeah.
But like now, I'd like athleticism in general. Like, countries are just up their game so much. I can't wait to see this Olympics if they get that stadium done.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. M's wondering.
Can you imagine?
She says, M says, "Can we go back to the Bears, please?" She says a clip of a bear scratching himself on a tree.
Sure,
Do you have any of those left?
Of
We don't
course,
even need context. Just play it. Trina Moyals gave us so. It was almost crashing our computer. It was almost like crashing our computers. I think we're running like Ferrari-esque computers here, guys. By the way, but
scratch for you.
You know what I love about this one is like, look at that, and she shows her trail cam videos where it's like her and her dog walking through, and then moments later the black bear's there scratching himself on that same pole. If you missed this, she was a fire tower lookout for years and talked to us about her experience. That's our January 7th episode. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know what
I don't know what the telephone
communication
pole thing is,
infrastructure.
But all these videos, if I queue them up, it's different. And then somebody yesterday in the chat as well was saying like they always come around my trail and they're up near telephone poles. Like they love
anything they can scratch up on.
Maybe it's like, I don't know, the signal from them, or I don't know.
If I know anything about,
they're trying to get good Wi-Fi, so
look
they
at this,
can like
just
post
back
their
to
videos.
back to back shots. This is amazing. I'm with them. I could watch, I could watch these magnificent animals all day long. That interview went like, it was like an hour. But I absolutely loved it. I saw Cactus Sheriff saying more of those, please. And I saw Lauren made a comment about it as well in the episode yesterday that he notices all the trolls kind of disappear when we have, episodes like that. I think it's because she was Trina.
That's very true.
Well,
I don't want to call anyone
talking
trolls,
about,
but it's funny how like the more
she was talking about her feelings. Maybe that's why. Yeah. People get uncomfortable when you're talking about your feelings.
The more abrasive fans, I don't know, even that's kind of insulting.
But you love it.
But they kind of fade out, during those segments.
Keep in mind, though, guys, too, and I know you know this. I know that some of you go to battle every single day in our live chat. We appreciate you for that. But like talk shows are really boring without trolls. We love the trolls. We welcome the trolls.
But I do also like, I don't know. Little empathy, little understanding, little empathy. You know, let's realize that our default setting when we were born was liberal. Okay.
Yeah. I'm taking a I'm taking a look here in the chat. There's been a debate that's been going on. This show is supposed to wrap. I promised Johnny the show was going to wrap 40 minutes ago because he's playing hurt today. You're playing sick today.
I took a bunch of meds. I don't even. What is it? Friday?
So chipper. Yeah, I can't believe we're here on a Saturday, Johnny.
Modern medicine is crazy.
But there is a debate here going back and forth, debating. You know, Mark says, I bet Jeff Rath won't be invited back on the show. And then Les says, no, have him on again. Have him, he says, have him spit in the mic again. M says, you're right. You are right. Last time he was on, we definitely chewed him up. I would bring Jeff Rath on the show. You guys, make no mistake, but the tone of the interview would be very different, right? Like he's trying to, the guy's trying to get me. He's unhinged on his social media right now, and he's trying to get me put onto the U.S. no-fly list for comments. I mean, you know what I mean? So I'll bring him on, but it'll be more of a slugfest than it was last time, And I think that every once in a while, I don't want this show to devolve into that, like every episode. But if you know me in real life, I'm not afraid of that. As a matter of fact, it gets the juices going a little bit for me.
Jeff Rath, I got no qualms with you, but if you prevent us
You got no qualms with Jeff Rath?
If you, personally, but opinions clash, but if you prevent me and Ryan from going to see Vegas versus Oilers in the playoffs this year, because we can't fly to Vegas, I will hate you forever.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. I also see that we've got a fella in here that's claiming that that Alberta, in an independence referendum, the yes vote, in other words, the vote to leave, will be guaranteed, says this individual, at 65% plus. My offer stands. If there is anybody in this audience that is willing to sign a legal document, we would obviously make it a legal document,
in
legally
blood.
Enforced. Well, the funds would be held in trust. I will bet a Bitcoin. And we have established this as the benchmark. If it is 65% yes, if the vote is a 65% yes vote, I'm willing to bet a Bitcoin on it. What is a Bitcoin worth right now?
Bitcoin's willy-nilly. You get a Bitcoin, and all of a sudden you're betting on everything.
Well, no, but you know what I've noticed about this, John, is that everybody goes awfully silent when you start talking about putting your money where your mouth is. So that Bitcoin, what's that? Right now, it's about 125. What is it? It always changes, like 125, 130 grand Canadian. I'll bet a Bitcoin on it. If there's anybody that is dead serious, talk at Ryan Jasper. Let's do it. It'll make national news. Let's do it. Let's fucking do it. Bet a Bitcoin. Put your money where your mouth is. We'll sign legal documents making the commitment. The funds, the coin, will be held in trust. Whatever that looks like. We'll get our friends at Rapidex Financial to sort it out.
I'll hold it.
They're like, Rapidex is like, we do not want to be dragged into this at all. But I'll go ahead and do it because it's one thing to like have a cool, clever handle and show up in a YouTube episode and make all these claims, but like put your money where your mouth is. Let's go. We'll bet a Bitcoin. It'll make national news.
I'll hold it in account offshore.
Johnny will hold it in your Cayman bank account.
Technical producer disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Super Chat Ken's absolutely right when he says, don't forget to hit that like button, folks. He says it helps the show with the algorithm. It helps us when you like it. It helps us when you share it. It helps us when you leave comments. And most importantly to me, the biggest one is when you tell your friends. We're having a lot of fun here. We're talking about some silly, stupid stuff at the end of the show. But we endeavor and promise every day to stay curious and bring you episodes we think that go a long way in driving discussion where it needs to go in Canada. And that's exactly what's going to happen in our next episode. That's January the 8th. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a top 5 episode in the history of the show. I'm saying that with confidence before we've even done the interview. That's how strongly I feel about it.
I would take work off tomorrow if I were you.
Yeah, I would say.
At least the morning.
Or at least let your boss know if you're not the boss. If you are the boss, you don't need to let anybody know. You can let your boss know that you're participating in a very important discussion.
Yeah. And I know what you're thinking now. Oh, who's it going to be? Blah, blah, blah. You know what's worse? Having to tell your boss, like, I got to go to the bathroom for 2 hours.
Yes.
When you could have just said, hey, I'm coming in at noon.
And then they just find you in the bathroom listening to it anyway.
Right? With the AirPods in.
Yeah. We've got, a lot of folks. Alberta girl going, who's that troll again that wouldn't take Jespo up on his bet before he disappeared or changed his handle? There was the Bitcoin bet before. I'm willing to put it out there. I'm dead fucking serious, you guys. I'll make this bet 100%. If anything, let's get on the record here and there's all a bunch of this is the debate we're having the other day. I don't mean to get too much into it right now, but we're having this debate and I put it out on my Twitter yesterday and where is this fine line? And I don't think that there's like a definitive answer. I think it's different for everybody. But where do you draw the line between, as I put it, deoxygenating talk about Alberta's separation or standing up for Alberta's future in Canada. And a lot of people I know feel that like we should not be talking about this. We should not be platforming Jeff Rath. We should not be having discussion about separation, not even talking about a referendum unless it happens, in which case then take a strong position. I kind of disagree, to be honest with you guys. I feel like it's important to talk this out. I think that a lot of people, in so many ways as in elections, you have those that are decided voters. There's a lot of people that know right now 100% how they feel about Alberta's future in or outside of Canada. And then I think there's a bunch of people that are kind of like, well, I don't know. And then, they're going to listen to their neighbor tell them that they're going to like Jeff Rath's telling people, you're not going to pay income tax in this magical place. The United States is going to give us $500 billion, and it's not, we're going to be able to afford to set up, new policing and a new pension fund that will be for sure 100% decisions that will be at arm's length from all the politicians that got us into this fucking mess and the like. No. And so I do think you need to have there's people that are going to, I hate to put it this way, and we don't generally walk around with this perspective on fellow humans, but there's a lot of really gullible people out there that unfortunately, and I say this tongue in cheek, have just as much of a vote as you do. And that's why I think it's important to go on the record with this stuff. So
monorail,
not going to shy away, right?
Monorail.
Ben,
I build monorails in Scottsdale.
Ben Demon Hunter says sunlight is the best disinfectant. I love that.
We don't have a lot of sunlight around here right now. It's been pretty.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
Cactus
drab.
Sheriff says, "Bring on the Jeff Raths, bring on the David Parkers, show the world
We've
how
had them both.
backwards they are." I know, that's what I'm saying. I think Cactus is supporting it, right? Yeah. Okay. I don't know. We could just keep going on this. This feels like a hangout. It feels like we might just go till the 3-hour mark, set a new time record.
We got to get ready for tomorrow.
We do have to get ready for tomorrow. It's a big one. Before we do, let me remind you what's happening at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. We're so proud to be supporting this incredible organization, the foundation itself, and then the brick and mortar, the Royal Alexandra Hospital, that for 125 years has been really, transforming, saving lives, welcoming new lives to the planet as well, you guys. It all happens at the Royal Alex, one of the busiest hospitals in the country. It's been a major provider of care for our community. And we're not just talking about Edmonton, not just talking about Alberta. As a matter of fact, every year, the Royal Alexandra has over 500,000 people each year visiting from a geographic landmass covering a third of the country. Can you believe it? Medical centers of excellence like the Lois Hole Hospital for Women, the C.K. Huey Heart Center, the Eye Institute of Alberta. Plus, of course, it's a regional leader in research, training, and education. And that's why we're asking that you support this hospital's most pressing needs for the patients of today, tomorrow, and many years into the future. Now, this may be a one-time gift or even a monthly gift in honor of someone in your life that has either benefited from care at the Royal Alexandra Hospital or will be forever tied in some way, shape, or form to the Royal Alex. You can learn more by checking out givetoroyalalex.org. If you're absolutely intent on making your post-secondary dream, your plan, your intention a reality this year, then you owe it to yourself to check out athabascau.ca. The AU Advantage includes and is built around world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. That's the biggest part of it. You can learn more about financial supports, hundreds of programs and courses, including that AU MBA, by the way, by visiting their website, athabascau.ca. It's never too soon to start thinking about your plans to go green in 2026. Your sustainable energy future could and should involve solar, and that's Solar by Kuby at kuby.ca. KUBY.ca is where you can get a free solar quote. Learn more about their innovative solar solutions for every home and business. It was a huge year in 2025 for the team at Kuby, marking 10 years now into year 11. They are driving change with carbon offset solutions and more. Learn more about smarter, cleaner utilities for sustainable living by checking out kuby.ca. And of course, we want to make sure that we're all talking about UCAN Youth Services. Johnny, let me just call up their Instagram. They just had a post the other day, and let's call this up because this was an awesome one. The team at UCAN Youth Services has just put out a video on their Instagram. That's UCAN Youth Services, featuring some of the recent graduates from these ready-to-work programs that they have. We're always talking to you about these young people that have been, quite frankly, in harm's way in many, if not most circumstances, due to decisions made on their behalf, due to upbringing, due to parents that may have tried their best but just couldn't meet those kids' needs, or maybe parents that just weren't part of the picture. Well, the team, the incredible professionals at UCAN, are working with these young people to get them employment ready. And the rate of success, the employer relationships, the partnerships really are remarkable. That's why we're so proud to be supporting UCAN Youth Services in their Verto and the Road to Work programs. Check out their Instagram at UCAN Youth Services to check out this video. These are, I'm going to call them success stories. Even though they're just getting set to enter the workforce, they've come so far, these young people, talking about the confidence that they've gained, talking about the contributions that they're excited to make in the workforce. Some of them are going to work in retail. Some of them are going to work in hospitality. Some of them will be on construction sites, getting their trades. Remarkable stuff. It's confidence, hope, and a renewed belief in what's possible. And that's because of the work that's being done at UCAN Youth Services. You can support UCAN today or inquire. If you're an employer looking for skilled, motivated, entry-level employees, you could find a perfect fit at UCAN. Again, that's ucan.ca. All right. Well, so here we are on the eve of another big episode. I'm not trying to be annoying, guys. I just know that the minute that we announce this interview, it's going to cause a stir, and that's why we'll make that announcement right before it happens. Tell your friends, if they're not already subscribing to our YouTube channel. Last I checked, I think we're 25 subscribers away from 35 grand, which would be pretty cool to get to before tomorrow morning. We also appreciate those of you that have recently joined us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And don't forget, registration is currently open for the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. Go to our website, ryanjesperson.com, under the events link. That's where you'll find it. The Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic touches down in St. Albert Saturday, January 31st in support of a great cause. It'll sell out. Make sure your team is there on the ice with us. Much love, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.